Hey everybody, Sinus here, bringing you a new All Clans World Record. Haven't seen one of these in a while, I'm sure. Especially because my hours of All Clans attempts on my Twitch, which you should all follow me at, twitch.tv/Sinistream, have been a failure. But my first run with the improved load times from not streaming resulted in this. So, here's the start of the run. I've got a very good Inferno Seed. It's got Tethys Scales for early spell weakness, and Titan's Tooth as a secondary spell, which isn't the best, but again, with Tethys Scales, it doesn't really matter. First fight goes pretty well. I get a fast kill on Chains, which is imperative because of his Blight effect, or Scourge effect, rather. And I get holdover first shot, which means I'm just kind of working with a standard, probably 2 Inferno strats run, unless something weird happens in the next ring. Neither trial is coins, which is a little bit disappointing, but not the end of the world, especially because I draw Inferno first turn, which is absolutely incredible for Fight 2, and leads to me coming out of it about 10 to 15 seconds faster than I normally do. And I'm offered Energy Siphon to boot. So this run is off to a very good start. I could diverge and go for holdover or double stack on Energy Siphon, but I choose to dupe Inferno, which I think was wise in the end. And then I also end up with Frozen Nostalgia, which is a pretty decent Concealed Caverns result for this run, just because 15 magic power, unlike the +3 magic power provided by Tempered Talisman, is a pretty big deal. Dealing 115 instead of just 100 adds up, especially when multiplied by spell weakness, and you'll see that a couple times in this run. Here, I don't believe it saves a turn on Daedalus, but I might be wrong. Yeah, it doesn't, because I overkill. But it is nevertheless very strong, and you'll see a couple examples of it throughout. I take energy because I'm running 2 Inferno strats, pretty obvious there, I assume. And then just go for Artifact and Removal. None of those are that helpful. No need to upgrade or take any units or anything like that. I'm not pressed for gold in particular, so I don't really have to care. Here's Fight 4, it's Absolvers. I get a good opening hand that allows me to kill the initial Absolver, which is kind of the big benchmark for this fight. And then from there, it's just holding over a bunch of Infernos. I technically should have played both of them initially, but it worked out fine, as you can see here. And it might have even been faster to hold only one over like I did. Maybe not something I'd do again, because it could fail, but it worked out. So that's Fight 4, Porcupine is down pretty easily. And now I'm obviously looking for upgrades on my Energy Siphon. Here's Temper Talisman for 3 whole magic power, much more impactful than Frozen Nostalgia, obviously. So now that I have holdover, I do some purging to ensure I get Energy Siphon quickly for the flying bosses. And then move on to Fight 5. You can see the little silhouette of Crystal Cloak was the one that showed up there, which means I don't need to worry about holding over my spell weakness for this fight, and I can take advantage of that to play a little bit faster. Just like so. Especially because he gets spell weakness from Tethys Scales, I can 2-turn him without the use of Energy Siphon. Very fast fight. And then I get Urchin Spines. With that, I'm pretty happy. I choose Removal and Spell Upgrade, which I believe turns out to go well over the dupe. I get double stack on my Energy Siphon, which is the best upgrade I could be offered, and is even better than a dupe. So, it does turn out to be a good choice. Here's Fel. It is, what is this, Wrathcrest? Yeah, Wrathcrest. And I get pretty exceptionally good patterns, with Fel letting me clear every unit out easily. And then I should have obviously Energy Siphoned here. I thought it would kill, but my math is bad, and it did not. There we go, though. Didn't lose too much time. And now I can take draw because I don't need a 5th energy unless I remove Consume on Urchin Spines, which is not really on my to-do list. Neither of those artifacts are useful, but another energy siphon certainly is. And now in this fight, respite strats are mandatory, meaning I'm going to be missing a couple of Infernos. Here's the first one. I should not have played these units out because they're going to get swept and ember drained, and thus I'm going to lose one of my Infernos for a little while. It's pretty unfortunate, but not the end of the world. And I set up a bit of a weirder respite strats method that you see here. I let one go up all the way to the 3rd floor rather than doing the more consistent strat that is normally used. But it does still work fine, and the setup allows for a pretty easy 2-turn kill on Nephil, so can't complain. Urchin Spines was unnecessary, but you gotta flex, obviously. So that's fight 7, and Seraph, because it's temperate, is not a huge worry. I purge out a couple more cards, and then dupe an energy siphon, avoid upgrades because, I mean, what would I grab? And then we're into Seraph fight with a thin deck and a pretty dense spell weakness set. Good opening draw, play out Hornbreaker to increase card density, and also to make plays easier. And with that, and some, again, pretty good patterns, Seraph dies. That's just above my gold split Hellhorned run, but considering how good that gold split was, I'm perfectly happy with this one. Now on to Melting Revenant, which is kind of the make or break run for these. So with that we go to Melting Revenant Umbra, Covenant 1, and reset for a Burnout extension card. I could take this, and because of Combustible Wax I would be happy to. But because I don't get Burnout Flicker, it's a no-go. This is also viable, and I take Refined Void, which is a pretty solid starting artifact, along with Burnout Flicker. So here is a viable run. I take any trial, no matter what it is here. None of them are that scary, and unit drafts and coins are both important for this run. I know from playing this fairly often that I do want to get the Collector here, so I use Perils of Production on a Morsel to get it to attack. I'm rather proud of that play, even though it's not really that smart. It's just kind of hard to do on the fly normally. And it does slow things down, but I believe the gold ends up being worth it. So we get Purifying Cleanse for more burnout, and Mind Collapse because it's generally good, and then Wickless Baron as our unit. It's like mid-tier as backline units go, but works perfectly well. I'd certainly rather have something like Paraffin Enforcer, but I would definitely not rather have these upgrades, which are quite bad. That does just happen, unfortunately, considering I look for multi-strike and only multi-strike. But it's still annoying. I'm able to Mind Collapse the second Collector, giving me even a little more money. And after Burnout Extension, this boss goes well, just because the offensive power on that fight is very limited. Could take Molded, but Wicklash is also very good, so is Perils, and then no good units there. All Umbra units are pretty much unviable for this run. But melting units are not, necessarily, and Big Sludge is not one I've seen recently, but it is very good when you get it, especially with multi-strike, and then I give it some extra attack for base, just to get it the early harvest procs it needs. And suddenly, Wickless Baron is quite obsolete. You'll see exactly how obsolete it is in this fight, I believe, yeah. So Big Sludge comes out, and even without much help, he is already able to just mow through everything on the first row. He already has 74/2 attack, which is astronomically high for this point in the game. And using Big Sludge is very card light, basically. I don't really need to worry about much, because Relentless kills so fast, and because Big Sludge has its own health bar, I don't really need to worry about the boss much, if at all. And then with Trample on the multi-strike Big Sludge, things just take off even further. And now I get my Paraffin Enforcer, but it's far too late because Big Sludge is much better. Wickless Baron specifically gets a Purge, and then so does a Train Steward. Here I'm looking to reduce the cost of Wicklash, which I do, and then throw an Emberstone at something, which I guess can be the Umbra Stone. There's not an amazing reason to do... Well, no, there is actually a decent reason, which is that if I draw both Big Sludge and Umbra Stone in the same hand, I couldn't play them before, but now I can. Not huge, but it's somewhat important, and certainly worth the 20 gold. Big Sludge just scales so fast as a unit. And because Flicker's base attack and Sludge's base attack are good enough to get you through a early wave, it's pretty hard for Big Sludge not to get his Harvest trigger, and that just sets him off for huge attack numbers like that one. Can duplicate a card here, and I take Infused Mallet to kill Shadewings in the Seraph the Temperant fight, giving Big Sludge free harvest targets. And I take another Wicklash, because extra burnout is good, and extra offense is better. In retrospect, I would have gone for a P-Cleanse there, because I don't really need to worry much about offense. This obviously is wrong. Believe it or not, it still works. That's how good this thing is. And I decide to go all in and throw some Burnout extension cards at it, especially Wicklash, which becomes very good in concert. And that also allows me to safely use Purifying Cleanse, which is pretty necessary, as it turns out. Hoping to draw another Purifying Cleanse, but I don't. Thankfully, Flicker can clean up, not a problem. So there goes Sower of Sorrows, so the order in which I positioned those enemies, or those minions, didn't really matter. I can't upgrade units in any meaningful way, so I take Improved Firebox and purge out some Shade Splitters. Probably should have purged out Stewards, but it's not a huge deal. And here's Scourgefell. This is an Ember Drain light deck. It doesn't necessarily need to commit to Ember Drain, and here it probably won't, because, well, it's Scourgefell. Why would you? Unfortunately, I get a too early Mallet proc there, and thus can't harvest the Absolver's Soul with Big Sludge. But it's alright. He's still doing pretty well on the Rage front, as you can see. He is attacking for 88 by 2. And it just goes up from there. I could Perils, but I will still get Ultimate Penances, and I don't want to get screwed by them. Moral Entrapment on Fel just for some extra damage. And that is, I believe, the last Ultimate Penance. For Relentless, which is a cakewalk. From an offensive perspective, Flicker actually gets pretty low from a defensive perspective, so I am a little bit worried now about Seraph and the giant piles of Shadewings that come in. I do have Mind Collapse, so I'm not, like, too scared, but it is something to watch out for. And I hold over Purifying Cleanse as a way of getting that extra healing. Then purge out 2 Train Stewards. And then the last Shade Splitter. This deck's pretty dense and pretty effective. 0 cost Umbra Stone to avoid problems with Ember Drain, because I'm now going to pseudo mashing with Perils of Production. This is a great fight for Big Sludge. I don't really think I need to tell you why it's a good fight for Big Sludge, because now you know. When the kit of enemies is built around dying, you're going to get a lot of harvest triggers yourself, is the basic explanation there. I do leak a full Gilded Wing from the first wave, just because Big Sludge hadn't quite scaled up that far yet. But I've got plenty of Pyre health, because that's basically the only time something like this has happened. And I've got enough health to mop up Nephil in 3 phases. Engulfed in Smoke seems handy for the defensive portion of things. Getting that stealth will, A, get rid of some annoying combat animations, and B, ensure that we're safe in the Seraph fight from the Shadewings. Holdover, perfect. Cost reduction, also very good. No need for any other upgrades once again, so let's move on. Here's the Infused Mallet putting in work. Again, it's first turn, so I can't properly harvest. But it does still do its job of getting rid of the Shadewings. And with a bit of Perils and Umbra Stone, as soon as we get Big Sludge off the ground, he's not going to go back. Which is what happens. Courtesy of Infused Mallet, we're getting all the harvest triggers we could dream of. And I can Mortal Entrapment Seraph. And this holdover Engulfed in Smoke is already working wonders for both combat speed and for defense. And it's not quite a mash, I choose to use some burnout cards here. But it's close enough, and it definitely does do the job. Seraph is already relatively low for this phase, and then Relentless is coming up in 1 turn, which is definitely going to go very well for us. No need to do much else but split. That is, I believe, again, about 10 or 15 seconds behind my gold split. I had to overwrite the Melting Revenant split because I'm a fool, and split very early in the last world record. If you watched that, you'll remember me splitting about 10 minutes into the run, but I believe the actual time was about 16:40. And I get some glorious time loss from mastering Big Sludge here. And then it's on to Umbra. These splits you see on screen with LiveSplit are not actually the correct splits. Some of you will know my world record is 47:39 before this video, not 43:09. Something screwed up when I had to get rid of the Melting Remnant split. And this might be some of best, but I'm not exactly sure. In any case, I've never obtained a 43:09. And not even after this will I have done that. No Monstrous on this one, which is not something I've seen in a while, but is a 1 in 3 chance to happen. So I can't really complain. And I'm just resetting once again for Void Binding. Pretty long process, but then here's another Void Binding with Seraph the Temperate, who's the best one, and I miss Monstrous again. And now it's a 1 in 9, and that's pretty annoying. And pretty slow, considering my Void Binding luck has not been very good, even regardless of the champion. So, the resets continue until morale improves. And morale is not improving. And finally I get another Void Binding. Do I get offered Monstrous? Thankfully, yes I do. And I got a pretty good artifact in Split Anvil. I don't think it's actually amazing, but it's something that can be used. And if it is effective, will work very well. And if it's not, I just lose some money that I didn't really need. Oh well. Pretty good first fight. The offensive power on this particular variant isn't amazingly high, but I do still mess it up a little bit. I could play Entombed Explosive, but I get another chance to redeem myself and do so. With a very strange slow-mo animation, I take Immortal Trade for early defense before I get my duped Void Bindings up and running. skip the Umbra unit because it's almost never useful. And then immediately I see Holdover, which is very good. It also means I don't have to worry about purging as much as I normally do, especially because I have Immortal Trade to keep me intact through the early waves. So I choose to not purge and save money for something else instead. Can't quite break through the Penance Givers, but that doesn't really matter, other than I can't kill Collector here. But again, I don't really need money at this point in the run. Having gotten all the upgrades on Void Binding I need, and not really needing to purge, not much else matters, as evidenced by the fact that I fast skipped both those rewards. Dupe is obligatory here, and I would, of course, want the 5 dupe from the Concealed Caverns, but it is not offered, and so I move on. And here we are in Daedalus after a bit of a lag spike or something. It's a pretty standard Void Binding fight, albeit a scary Void Binding fight, because I almost die. And it is definitely very close. Explosive Sigil is scary because it overwrites damage shields, but thankfully I get enough up to off Daedalus fairly easily. And Furnace Tap. Now the run's basically over. I have everything I need. Looking for 2 Ember Stones on Furnace Tap. In runs past, I've gotten double stacked on it, but I've always regretted not doing 0 cost. So here I will fix my mistakes and give it 0 cost instead of double stack. That is especially the case because I don't have Perils. Do I have Perils? I don't think I do have Perils of Production. Instant Furnace Tap is awesome. And then Immortal Trade holds me over while I wait for the Void Bindings. Here's 1, and there's 2. With that, this fight's already over. No damage taken. Again, I'm fast skipping everything by this point because it doesn't really matter. I just skip every reward because no other upgrade slots that matter to me are left. Can't set up floor 1 here because of stealth, so I set up floor 2 instead. Unfortunate just because it gives extra movement animations, but what can you do? My second Void Binding is drawn very late, and I'm dealing with Sorrow of Sorrows and have no backlight reach, which actually means this one gets a little scary before it dies. Yeah, I tried to hype that one up, but it didn't really work. So yeah, you can see my Umbra split is counting up already from some kind of supposedly bad, or so this is now some kind of supposedly bad time when it's not actually. I think my Umbra split should actually be about 27 minutes. Something very weird happened to my LiveSplit, and I don't know exactly what or why. But because I'm doing well here, I'm still feeling okay about the run, even though LiveSplit would say to not do so. There's not much else to say about this fight other than play Void Bindings. So that's what I'm going to say. Play Void Bindings. And then Fell dies in a 2 phase. It was pretty close to 1 phase. I could take another Furnace Tap, but it's too slow to get the extra Ember Stones compared to what it's worth, which isn't that much. Especially because I can now just fully skip the rewards here. Because I took Capacity earlier, I can take Draw now, and still be able to play this monstrous Penumbra. Thankfully, because I'm tier 3, I can boot that Purifier easily. Otherwise, he'll cause a bunch of problems. I get all the Ember Drain cards, and now this fight is over. I've got all the damage I could possibly need, and more. Enough, I believe, to 2 phase. Okay, I thought it was 1 phase. But I guess I'm wrong. 2 phase living armor. Rather than going for upgrades, I take a dupe on Furnace Tap because I'm confident I'll survive defensively and want to get a faster set of kills. Will I do this again? I'm not sure, but it turned out fine, so whatever. Because of the way Seraph the Temperate works, only the first Lightwings can be spawned on the floor other than the first. So that means I can wipe out everything before it gets a chance to do any movement animations other than Seraph, obviously. But because of the second Furnace Tap, I'm dealing a lot of damage pre-Relentless. He almost dies pre-Relentless. Not quite, certainly, but almost. Before he finally comes down and dies in a single phase. 1, 2. And you can see that's a gold split, despite the fact that it is plus 244. That's just because I'm comparing against some of best, or due to some other messy thing in LiveSplit. So with that, that's Umbra done. On to the 2 most consistent runs, Stygian and Awoken. But they're also 2 of the runs with a pretty high variance in time. Alright, Seraph the Temperate right off the bat, looking for Frostbite Tethys. And I do not find it. So I have to reset. My champion luck was pretty bad in this run. Thankfully it was on runs, aside from Void Binding, that weren't that awful in general. Still no Frostbite Tethys. That is 1 in 9. And then a 3rd Temperance finally goes my way, and I have Frostbite. Along with a Guild Marker, which is a pretty good artifact for this run, and for its Awoken counterpart. Retribution is a bad trial because it will immediately kill Tethys and make the rest of the fight much more complicated. The coins are good, but they're just not worth it. I have this fight down to a science. You never need to play a Restore, just play a bunch of Stewards. And you'll always kill the boss on the 2nd phase of Relentless, just like so. 1, 2. I take a Resto Detto here, just in case I get some Hollow or another Rejuvenate unit. But instead I get Lodestone Totem, which I'm like, hey, why not? It should work. And I give it some health so it can better tank. Put it all the way up to 36, because anything big enough with restores will just be a good tank. And Lodestone Totem is no exception. So here's fight 2 with it. Probably should have taken Unit Draft, but it works out fine. And I just play out Lodestone Totem straight up. Which seems very silly, but I actually quite enjoyed this run. Being able to sap out enemies easily is pretty nice. And I can restore and mash arbitrary spells. So basically any spell is fair game. I consider Glimmer, but opt against it, which I think is the right call. And I can dupe, but I don't want to because I want the backline, which is ending up as Husk Hermit. And I get Forever Flame to alleviate the cost problems from my Lodestone Totem, which now only costs 1, like it was pre-nerf. Thank you, Forever Flame. It was actually a really big help in this run, and you'll see why after Daedalus. But for now, here's that fight. This is actually a pretty safe place to go, because that's a lot of different units with the attack stat. Normally that's 20 damage, but with 2 incants it's only 4. Rather than if the one unit had 20 damage, 2 incants would put it to 16 only. It's a pretty clunky way of explaining it, but I'm pretty sure you can pick up what I mean. because it's obvious here. If that had been one unit, the Lodestone Totem would have taken 14 damage. Husk Hermit now finally gets to be played out after my mistake in the Train Steward last wave. And we're good to go even without sap on Daedalus, so no sense in adding some. None of those are that useful. Although I could have taken Wildwood Tome, I turn out to be able to get quick onto Husk Hermit anyway. Which is exactly what I aim for. Endless is fine, but quick is what I'm looking for, and it's what I end up getting, along with the Strength Stone to kill most backliners. Then I purge out Train Stewards just because they're bad, and they take too long. Those could have been taken as a replacement for Husk Hermit if I hadn't already upgraded it, but Husk Hermit still does its job and is a little beefier, so it works fine. This fight's a little problematic because after the sap decays, these things still have impressive attack stats as they ascend. You can see that here, that one deals 22 damage to the Pyre. And I just can't quite break through, unfortunately. But I will be able to kill the boss easily, so this set that just ascended to the 3rd floor will not be able to attack. Skip everything because I know I don't really need much else. Once the units are purged out of my deck, I'm pretty much happy. I do take another Lodestone Totem here, because I can now safely play them, and because I have the capacity for them. That will be very strong, especially against flying bosses, but also just in general as a way of defending against non-boss units when they attack the Pyre. Watch this satisfying animation. Boom! All of those extinguish effects. Just a single incant does a pretty good job of mopping the floor with their attack stats. Although I'm going to leak one here in that Clipped Guardian, but he's not going anywhere with his attack. Crystal Cloak doesn't quite die until it gets sapped into Oblivion, and then it definitely does die. Just barely, but it does. Now I'm just looking for removal to clear out the last Train Steward. That is really it, although I'd rather restore than a Frozen Lance on balance. None of those are that useful, but Pyrestone Housing can totally be useful, so I grab it just in case it is. Here's Wrathcrest Fell. I'd rather Eternal Crest, but Wrathcrest is fine too. Scourge Crest for Stygian is a little problematic, especially in a build that's focused around incants like this one. So just one Lodestone Totem and a bit of incanting gets the attack to manageable levels, and then with a second Lodestone Totem, I'm already loading some sap onto Fel. That is the best place for Fel to rage by far, and because of the sap totems, this is not something I normally can do, but I can successfully deal with the sweepers, the Masters of Light, in this fight, who normally will be able to kill Tethys with no opposition, but even when that one is raged up by Fel, I can still ensure it doesn't attack. And that's the power of Lodestone Totems, aka Stygian Flex Tape. You can use them for anything, including as frontline tanks like I do here. Not that their health pools matter, considering Fel does not even get to attack. But they still certainly do the job now, don't they? And again, the timer's messed up. This is a perfectly good Stygian time, as evidenced by the fact that it's in the world record run. Quick doesn't go on much of anything. I was looking for multi-strike, but I didn't find it. So I throw that upgrade on and then leave. Again, Frozen Lance is still an incant, but it's just worse than Restore in most cases. And then I have Big Attack Tethys. Pyre Wings, again a fight that's normally scary, but again, sap makes it trivial. when you don't get to attack, it's pretty hard to use your strike effect. So these poor saps have discovered I'm just casually laughing at my own jokes. Don't mind me. But they have so much sap and so little base attack that they don't really stand a chance even against the Pyre, and even Neville with his pretty high base attack cannot stand up to the giant Frostbite stacks that are coming out. Incant Frostbite is fine, I just don't have the capacity for it, so I skip it. And now it's on to Seraph, who I really am not sure at this point in the run if he's scary or not, but I'll find out, I guess. Drop the cost of Resto Detto, and then dupe it. Because I have 7 draw, I want to get as many incant procs as I possibly can. Those artifacts aren't useful, and I don't want to spend the time to re-roll. The only reason I was there in the first place was looking for a Cuddlebeard, which isn't actually even that good here, I don't think. So time to definitely beat Temperant at its own game. Already 4 sap with having to spend 2 energy, and I can play almost all of this. And sap the Shadewings so that they don't even attack, which is very strong, even with the quick sweeper that I have on my side. Because sap makes him obsolete very quickly. The only thing on the field that strikes at this point is Tethys. That is legitimately it. Not even when they make it to the Pyre are the Shadewings able to attack it, because the sap density is so high. Seraph already has 28 on him. And here's Relentless. For the first while, it is just Tethys attacking, and she does a pretty good job of wiping the floor with everything. Seraph is not about to attack anytime soon. So that's another Stygian run. That isn't a gold split. But again, 36:59 is a perfectly good time, despite what may be shown in the LiveSplit. I have 10 minutes, not 6 minutes, to pull off an Awoken run, and you'll see how this goes. Switch clans, and then depart. Again, I'm looking for Temperant, although Narninian has informed me that Chase can also be used, which seems about right, honestly. But I get Explosive first try on Temperate, so it doesn't really matter, and then I take Jack Strips for the early game, which comes in handy for like 2 individual instances of gameplay, and then is useless for most of the run. But that's okay. I'll forgive it. Gather Clergy, which is one of the places where you really, really do want Jack Strips. Just to clear out those extra clergymen and make sure they don't attack the Pyre or do slow animations. Because it's Cov 0, this boss is not scary at all. And I could take things, but at this point I'm going like nose to the grindstone, pure speed, because I'm pretty sure I can beat it. Especially with a Horned Warrior, which is a decent backliner. And so I know I just want to purge. I do take an Ember Stone for later. I'll dupe that Restores to make a 6-card hand of Pure Restores after Fell. Yeah, it is after Fell. For this, I have a 30 attack backliner instead of 5, which is pretty strong, especially because I didn't really have to go out of my way to grab him. And the early rejuvenates allow me to drop down his health substantially before Horned Warrior even gets a swing in. Unit upgrades now to attempt to grab Multi-Strike on Horned Warrior. Sorry for the sneeze. If it was even audible, I'm not sure it was. Here's Explosive Sigil, like in the Penumbra run. This is a bit scary because of the just large individual front-loaded damage that comes out during this fight. But because I still do have a couple torches, I can spot remove anything I need to, and it's not that bad in the end. I play out Train Stewards to ensure I have the restore and torch density I need for the final wave, which is achieved pretty easily. And it's a 4-phaser, which is why Horn Warrior is so important. And then I opt for 4 energy, you'll see why later. Removal is always the top priority in this run, no exception here. So I purge out 2 torches and then go to the merchant for another purge. So that's all the torches gone already, which is pretty fast by the standards of this run. And into Fight 4. At this point I have 7 minutes remaining to get world record, which is a pretty doable task. This fight goes pretty simply, although I'm a bit bogged down by my train stewards still, especially because I mostly refuse to play them out. I just think it'll be enough, which, as it turns out, is in fact the case. Just a couple phases take care of that one. And I purge 2 train stewards, and then grab neither of those because they're not that useful. Reroll looking for multi-strike, still don't find it. And then just think about moving on before wanting to purge again, because that is still just the most important thing. So one more Vortex or any other source of purge will definitely do the job here. Here I can, unlike in the Penumbra run, set up on the first floor because the Rejuvenate effect ignores stealth, allowing me to mop the floor with the enemies easily. And I already have a floor hand of 5 restores, all of which I can play because of 4 energy. And then once I gain additional draw after Fell, I'll dupe the 0 cost restore to create my final hand of 6 restores. Because I have no backline reach, this goes rather poorly. But here's Jack Strips coming in clutch again, saving me some pyre damage. And then Sword of Sorrows with no lifesteal does not hit that hard against the pyre, as you can see there. So I get Dupe and Remove, which is perfect, because those are the exact things I want. Dupe Restore to create my 6-card hand, and now the rewards are over. I don't need to take anything else. Here's Eternal Crest, which is, I think, the second best fight. You'd rather Wrath Crest in this particular run, I believe. But Eternal Crest is also acceptable, just Scourge Crest is annoying. And because my restore density is well set up, I can pretty easily just mash through the non-boss enemies and even get some damage on Fell when she deigns to come down. So that's just how this one goes. And then takes a bunch of damage from restores and a bunch of damage from the Horned Warrior, and it's over in about 3 phases. Again, I am still ahead of pace, not behind. LiveSplit is more like LieSplit. Gottem. I could take unit upgrades in search of multi-strike, but it's only a 50% chance to get it. And so I just choose not to. Especially because with the 6 restore set going into Fight 7, it doesn't really matter. I know for a fact that I can make it through here. So I just play restores all the way through, and because, again, I have such high density, I can avoid getting swept by the Pyre Wings at all. And chunk out Neffel for over half his health before the relentless combat even starts. Pretty dang good. I could take Engraft, but I don't have to. And spending the thought energy to upgrade it and to look at the cards to take it is a mistake. And as I said, I can already avoid all rewards, and I know that going in, so I just jump straight to Seraph. Again, I can pretty easily wipe the floor with the non-boss enemies, and because of the Temperate mechanics, no Lightwings will spawn on a floor other than the first for the rest of the round. And again, I'm able to land a decent amount of extra damage. But it doesn't matter hugely because Horn Warrior is pretty heavily sapped by this point and will not easily be able to recover. And because there are so many enemies in this fight, it's really hard to actually get one before Relentless. Here's Final Wave, and Seraph is definitely dead. So now it's just a matter of time. And world record is 45:29:53, with a pretty nice gold split Awoken, and a time that almost, but not quite, beats the Unseeded world record. So that's the end of this All Clans run. If you enjoyed, please do like, subscribe, and check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Sinistream, link in the description, or join my Discord. And if you didn't, please do comment down below with how I can improve. And either way, have a good one. This has been Sinis.